criticism is not hate. It just seems like news article after news article, drama after drama keeps coming back to this one main talking point. When something fails, blame the fans. Disney is hiding behind people of color, behind their DEI choices, and almost letting them take the flack for what they know is just a bad show. This is what Disney has been saying. This is now what Ubisoft is saying. And we have people like Jodie Turner-Smith who are going into a Glamour interview, slamming Disney, blaming Disney for not protecting actors against this toxic fandom. You have Variety articles being written about this toxic fandom. It just is kind of getting out of control. And so we're today going to take a look at some of these articles, and we're going to look at them, to look at the claims being made, to analyze these claims logically, to talk about them, think about them, and see if what they're saying might actually be true or if there's another explanation. Here's our first one. This is the Glamour article that Jodie Turner-Smith just recently did, entitled, "We Don't Get to Fall Upward Like a Lot of White Men." That was the title of the article. I'm not going to read the whole thing. You can if you want. I'll link it down below. But here is the main thing, and this has been starting to make the rounds on Twitter and other places. Here's what it says. The show was unceremoniously canceled, allegedly, due to low ratings. Not allegedly. Right? They're already trying to spin something. They're already trying to set up that there's a different narrative, that it's not because of low ratings that it was canceled. Really. But in the weeks leading up to its season finale, the cast faced relentless torrents of racist abuse online from so-called fans who couldn't handle a black actor leading a Star Wars series.
Allergic to scams. Seriously, this is not new. It's been disproven. What you saw was a placebo effect. It's a scam. It's not real. I'm out.
What's being said here is there's another reason for this being canceled, that the reason everyone was upset, the reason people might have shown frustration towards the Acolyte is because fans couldn't handle a black actor leading Star Wars. Okay, those are the claims. These are the claims that are being made so far. Continuing, in a video posted to her Instagram story, Amandla, talking about Amandla Stenberg, addressed the cancellation, noting that since the show was announced in 2020, she and the cast have experienced a quote-unquote rampage of hyper-conservative bigotry, vitriol, prejudice, hatred, and hateful language. I'm just going to say this. I 100% believe there have people been saying things that are prejudiced, hatred, racist. Guaranteed. I guarantee you she had things said to her that way. I have not seen it. I have not seen the DMs or the tweets or the videos, even though some of the videos that they've referenced, I wouldn't say we're coming back at her necessarily, but about the character and the writing and a lot of those things. But that doesn't mean, let's not be naive here. We live in a world where people say some of the harshest, worst, anger-filled, hatred things towards each other online. So is it believable that these things were said to her? Absolutely. But what about the first part of the claim? The first part of the claim says a rampage. A rampage. What does that mean? Like, what are we actually talking about? A little bit of clarity here instead of hyperbolic language would be really helpful. It would be really helpful to understand. Now, of course, people are going to say,
oh, don't worry, she's not talking about you. If you're getting upset, it just shows your closeted racism.
No, I'm getting upset because there's claims that are being made all throughout this article and articles like it. We're going to see those in a little bit. These claims are being thrown around and are not being substantiated. They're just being very vaguely talked about, and then we're moving on. But they're being stated as fact. And I'm not saying you have to show every tweet, every DM. And if those things are happening, they should be removed from the platform. Even the examples that were given about Nerdrotic and RK Outpost and that whole thing, a lot of that anger was directed back at Disney, not at the actors or actresses. And then when Amandla came forward with her music video, things ramped up from there. Now, I will say there were some that reported early on, and I even got caught up in this early, right? There was early on posts of Amandla saying things like,
we have a lot of white people crying after, which is great.
And I even got caught up this when Amandla was doing things for The Hate U Give. Some people were putting those around on Twitter and making that sound like she was talking about Acolyte when she wasn't, and people I think were misrepresenting. That doesn't mean I agree with what she was saying, but there definitely have been people that have blown things out of proportion from her perspective in an uncharitable light on both sides. But this rampage of hyper-conservative bigotry, calling people alt-right, calling people all of these things in her video, I believe that it's somewhat there, but I think it's also being over-talked about or made to be more than it actually is. This is the internet. People say horrible things to other people all the time. When you become public on X or YouTube or anything, I mean, you can go through some of my comments on my videos. People have said some pretty horrible things. If you're going to be public, people will respond publicly. Continues, it's an infuriating cycle. Actors of color are cast in Star Wars projects and are immediately made vulnerable to vicious bigotry. John Boyega in particular has been outspoken about this experience with racism while part of Star Wars sequel trilogy. Oh, the racism where Disney took him off the poster for China? Like, why would you think Disney would do anything, right? Don't get me wrong. I think that if anyone is making racist comments or not watching a series or a movie or actively showing hate towards a character of a different skin color or race or whatever it might be, that's flat out wrong. But what Disney is doing is actually far worse. I'm going to explain that in a little bit. Here's the quotes that we're getting from Jodie. This was all kind of interspersed different things. Now they're to the Jodie Smith-Turner quotes. Jodie Turner-Smith. They've got to stop doing this where they don't say anything when people are getting effing dogpiled on the internet with racism and BS. Jodie says of Disney's lack of response to the Acolyte reception, it's just not fair to not say anything. It's really unfair. It would be fine. It would be nice if the people that have all the money, see, it's all about these power dynamics, whether that be Disney or any studio, were showing their support and putting their feet down. She proposes, say this is unacceptable. You're not a fan if you do this. Make a really big statement and just see if the money leaves. I bet you it won't, because people of color, and especially black people, make up a very large percentage of buying power. They might find that it's actually more lucrative for them, but everyone's using woke like it's a dirty word. All of these things are said. No evidence is given. I'm very confused about what is actually being shown. And so what is Disney going to respond to? Or are they going to quote tweet people and say, no, you can't talk like this. Don't do this. Like, Disney already only deals with the creators that love them mercilessly. I'll never be invited to anything Disney, and I'm fine with that. I don't do this to get Disney's kudos. There's some creators that do. We call those shills. So I'm confused. What exactly should be done? What is the path here? Because as soon as you put anything out, it's going to be disliked by someone. There's already been statements when things are made like what Kathleen Kennedy said about men being a problem in the Star Wars fandom. But again, we're getting all of these just very hyperbolic, very wide-reaching statements without any specificity, without any clear denunciation. I think we should absolutely denounce racism when we see it. Absolutely. 100%. And I think Disney should. But I'm confused at what we're talking about. It almost feels like what happened to Moses Ingram, what happened to Rose Tico, what happened in some of those situations where people were pretty negative, not just towards the character, but also towards the actress and bringing race into it. I feel like that was projected upon Amandla Stenberg, and like she's adopted that. And honestly, it really just feels like in these cases, Disney is hiding behind people of color, behind their DEI choices, and almost letting them take the flack for what they know is just a bad show. So it's almost like they do this as a safety mechanism, knowing that, hey, maybe if the show's great, people will love it anyway. And if it's bad, we won't get blamed. They'll just blame the actors and actresses. I mean, that really kind of feels like what's happening here, but I'm really confused of what they're supposed to do. We're getting there to the place where people need to stop having a stick up their arse about people of color being a part of IPs that were created by white people. This is not why people have disliked The Acolyte. The majority of people did not care. Actually, the majority of people never turned on The Acolyte to dislike it. It's just this statement. Again, going back to the things she said, it's almost like she wants to take things that have been made by quote unquote white people, by George Lucas. Why can't you just say were created by George Lucas? Why do you have to say that it was created by white people? You're saying there was no input from people with different ethnicities, with people with different backgrounds in Star Wars? The nerd fandom has always been welcoming to everyone. I don't get it. Star Wars was pretty groundbreaking about involving women and people of color in all these things. So it doesn't hold up, and we just don't see the receipts. But this isn't the only person who's kind of blaming this toxic fandom. We've got more. Oh boy, do we have more. Guys, it just is getting when something fails, you know what you do? You know what you do now? You blame the toxic fans. Well, because there's always been toxic fans. There always will be quote unquote toxic fans. So let's just pretend like everyone who dislikes our thing is toxic, right? Here's Steve Chessard. He's the monetization director at Ubisoft Games. And if you've been following the news, Ubisoft is in trouble, capital T. They produced Star Wars Outlaws, and it was not a finished game. It was just not good. Yeah, there were some people that didn't want to play it because it was a female protagonist, but that was not the reason the game was disliked. But they're hiding behind that type of stuff. Then you have the Assassin's Creed kind of fallout of some of the problems of the ways that they depicted Japanese culture and failed at that. There's just been a lot. And you have just so many different announcements that have been that way. And so that comes to this post. It's not just about Star Wars, but Star Wars is in there. And listen what he says. I rarely post on social media, but today I am sad, ashamed, and sad. The gaming industry is rough at the moment. We all know it. But seeing how gamers react, quote unquote gamers, right? Why would you put something in quotes like that? What is the intention there? Why does this sentence look the way that it does? This sentence looks the way that it does with gamers in quotes because he's trying to already subvert and basically almost dehumanize or discredit those he's talking about. Take out the quotes. Just say, but seeing how gamers, not quote unquote gamers, react on social media. It's this idea that is being insinuated and inferred that the people who are reacting negative on social media aren't truly gamers. They're just gamers. They're so-called fans. They're the toxic ones. The ones that don't like us are the ones that we would just label something and say we don't like them. Man, that certainly sounds like exactly how in this country for a long time people of a different color were talked about. And now it's just all being done back towards people that you don't like. Wishing ill fate to companies and people alike is sad. And not only towards Ubisoft. Okay, so he's making this claim. He's saying that people are wishing ill fate to companies and people alike is sad. Well, I'll be honest. How many times have you played a game that you didn't like and really been frustrated with that company? EA Sports, I think, is a perfect example of this because for decades, all they keep doing is churning out mediocre sports game garbage. You even go through the Star Wars stuff. I mean, you can be mad and want a company to fail. There's nothing wrong with wanting a company to fail. Wishing ill fate to companies? You mean criticizing them? Wanting them to learn from their mistakes? Wanting Disney to fail so that they maybe learn and change the way that they're acting? Like, think about it this way. Failure is actually the best teacher.
Failure also. Yes, failure most of all. The greatest teacher, failure is.
If you never fail in your life, if you never have hardship in your life, you never learn. You never learn what to do and what not to do. And it's pretty clear for a long time, especially in this country, there's a lot of young people who've had everything given to them, whose parents have never allowed them to fail, who have been shielded from any sense of hardship or failure. And as a result, they are non-functioning adults because they've never experienced loss. They've never experienced hardship. They've never experienced failure. Wanting companies to fail is not this like hate crime that he's making it out to be. And not only towards Ubisoft, right? So he's saying it's widespread problem. Well, maybe make good games. And no one complains about the good games or the good shows, movies, none of that. Even though it was always the vocal minority that expresses themselves on social media, I was hurt. Is it always though? Is it always a vocal minority? Or are there times when you screw up so bad, like The Acolyte, like Star Wars Outlaws, like Assassin's Creed, when you screw up so bad that the vocal people on social media are actually the majority and you can't take the truth because you can't handle the truth? Because sometimes that's the case. I was hurt and ashamed to be a part of this company. Well, why? Maybe because the product that was put out was pitiful and is being destroyed for the way that it was handled. Now, again, I don't just talk about video games here, so we didn't necessarily cover all this Ubisoft drama. You can go look it up. But again, this involves Star Wars and blaming toxic gamers and fandom. What is even more revolting is coming on LinkedIn and seeing the same comments from people within the industry. Well, maybe because you guys screwed up. Like, is there any reflection here that maybe the criticism is well-deserved? On top of exposing yourself as a clearly non-decent human being. Right, because that's what this was doing. Gamers, non-decent human beings. You have criticism. You're a non-decent human being. I'll say it again. Criticism is not hate. Hate is hate. There's a difference between criticism and hate. Some people are hateful on the internet. We've already established that. But that doesn't make people that are reacting on social media non-decent human beings. You are affecting thousands of employees that are already impacted by all the hate. Criticism is not hate. Despite doing their best to deliver incredible experiences. I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that many of the developers at these video game companies, I don't doubt that many of the folks as a part of Star Wars and Lucasfilm are doing their best to deliver incredible experiences. I really believe that the companies from top down have issues and problems. And sometimes it's the deadlines being forced onto developers that cause issues, things and rewrites from people on the top to put things into the storyline or change this or change that. But my criticism affecting thousands of employees. So what you're saying is, don't say the thing was bad because you might cause someone to lose their job. Well, why do we get to keep a job if we keep doing a bad job? I've said for a long time, the only job you can do every day of your life and be wrong and not get fired is to be a weatherman. But I might have to expand that. I might have to expand that too. And directing a Star Wars show for Disney and making a game for Ubisoft, right? Like, because these people keep messing up, making mistakes, the same mistakes, making things that are bad, and people don't like them. And you don't change. It's like the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. You thought we were going to like this? Already impacted by all the hate despite doing their best to deliver incredible experiences. This also gets to a really important thought that I think pervades our culture today, where when I think differently than you, when I have an idea that conflicts with your idea, when I bring an opposing idea to the table, that idea is violent or is violence, mental violence towards you. I mean, you've probably seen this, and I'm not saying I agree with all things left or right. I actually just don't want to talk about politics, but you see this all the time when someone is not allowed to speak on a college campus, where they're kicked off because their ideas are too harsh or too violent. And most of the time, that's just not the case, where there's protests and things happen. I mean, you've seen this with people like Jordan Peterson. The ideas are not violence. Do ideas lead to violence? Yes. But this is why we have to talk about ideas. This is why when you start to remove conversation, when you start to take apart the ability to talk with one another about ideas that you don't agree on, then that's when it leads to violence. Why? Because when you no longer can even relate and all you do is dehumanize, when you dehumanize your opponent, what you're actually doing is making a pathway for violence. I'm rambling. I'm sorry. Can you see? This stuff frustrates me. And this is just so logically failing. Like, it just fails on every note to have any kind of semblance of logic. You're doing the same thing. You're just trying to be subtle about your hatred, or what you would consider hatred. I don't think this is hatred. I think you're just trying to weave a narrative by dehumanizing the people you don't like. How can you wish a company to fail simply because they do not cater to the product that does not please you is beyond me. This statement is insane. At what point do we get at a company, like, does the company know what's best for its audience? No. More often than not, no. And how do you know if you're a good restaurant or a bad restaurant? How do you know if you're a good YouTuber or a bad YouTuber? How do you know any of these things? How do you know if you've made a good video game or a bad video game? The people like it. That more people like it than don't. And so more people will go to that movie. More people will go to that restaurant. More people will buy that video game. The more people that like it don't. You can't expect to make something that you like and then go, how dare you not like the thing I told you to like? I'll be honest, there's some videos I've made on my channel that I love. I think they're great. You guys don't watch them. That's okay. Like, it doesn't hurt my feelings. Well, maybe it does a little. That doesn't change what I like and what I don't like. What it actually tells me, though, is, oh, the people I'm trying to connect with, the people who I'm trying to either entertain or inform or have this relationship with on the internet, weren't so interested in that idea, even though I thought it was really interesting. So what does that tell me? Either my idea wasn't as good as I thought it was, which probably is true. It might tell me that my packaging, the way that I presented my idea, even though I loved it, I didn't present it in a way that might have been interesting enough to you. Okay, fair. But I can learn something from it. And I can see, oh, well, what do people like? He finishes off saying, we're all in the same boat. Please, please, please stop spreading hate. We should all uplift each other instead of bringing each other down. We have to be very specific about what is criticism and what is hate. Because what is happening right now is everything that says what I don't like about my thing, it's just you're being hateful. You could never have a valid reason for disliking this thing. Man, the pride and arrogance that has. And that's exactly what's happening. And it keeps happening more and more. There's more, guys. There's so much more. There's another article. Here we are. This one. And you've probably seen it. You've seen others talk about it. I'm going to give you my take, my thoughts, because that's why you clicked on the video. Here we go. Toxic fandom. So ask yourself, toxic fandom is part of the title. Are they going to define exactly? Are they going to be specific about what a toxic fandom really is? How Hollywood is battling fans who are just out for blood, from social media boot camps to superfan focus groups. Okay. Using this in your title, what are they doing? Ask yourself why. What are they doing? They're already setting it up to say that there's one side of this that is just bloodthirsty, bloodlust, blinded by hate and anger, and then there's the rest of us, good people. Right from the beginning, of course, it's talking about Amanda Stenberg, and then we have here, in other words, the Acolyte was the largest high-profile target of quote-unquote toxic fandom with a hyperlink. Okay, where do you think this is going to link? Because I had to click on it. I had to. I had to click on it. I'd be like, okay, what are you going to do with this? I'm going to click on it. It's right here. You can see it. But I'm going to click on it again anyway, just to pop up a new window. We'll see where it goes. Where's it going to go? It's going to go, to just pull up the only article. That one sentence right there already makes me know that the rest of this article is a joke. It's a joke. If you're going to make a claim that a fandom is toxic and throw a hyperlink in your article in the first 3 paragraphs, and it just leads back to the article you're reading, this is a joke. Yes, I have probably a bias that I'm bringing to this also, but I'm going to try the best I can to take what they're saying and see if there's truth to it. The catch-all term for when a fan criticism curdles from good faith dissatisfaction into a relentlessly negative, often bigoted online campaign against either a project or its stars or creative leaders. Okay, so this is their attempt at a definition of a toxic fandom. It's a catch-all term when it curdles from good faith dissatisfaction. What does that mean? I can't just be upset about something. If I'm upset about something, I'm toxic. If I'm frustrated, and I've seen time and time again how Disney and Lucasfilm drop the ball and have no idea what Star Wars is, so now I'm a toxic fan, into a relentlessly negative. It wouldn't be negative if it was good. But when 90% of what you make is garbage, when you look at the sequel trilogy, disaster, when you look at the shows that they've made since then just completely fall flat with the exception of 2 seasons of Mandalorian. And even then you could say 1.5 seasons of Mandalorian. Ahsoka was not good. I could just sit here, as we talked about last time, I could just sit here and list all of the things that are bad, that have been objectively bad, that have not been enjoyed by most of the audiences. Yes, you're going to find people that enjoyed Obi-Wan Kenobi and Boba Fett and Acolyte and so on and so forth. You're going to find people that enjoyed those things, people that love season 3 of Mandalorian, people that love The Last Jedi. Yes, you're going to find pockets of people that like those things. But overwhelmingly so, the majority of fans dislike Disney Star Wars. So when the majority dislikes something, it will probably end up being relentlessly negative, often bigoted. Proof. Where's the proof? Online campaign against either the project or its stars. Can I see a bigoted online campaign against the stars? Because this is what Amanda Stenberg is saying has happened, a rampage of hyper-conservative bigotry, but we just haven't, we're taking her word for it. She hasn't shown it. There are some, yes, we've said that already in this video. I've said there are some 100% positively sure that there are some that have been bigoted and some that have fallen to that level of hatred and prejudice. Often, you're saying most of the time, online discourse. So when I disagree with it, am I often bigoted? Now again, people are going to say, oh, they don't mean you. Okay, then show me the list of who they mean. In a franchise economy increasingly dependent upon established audience devotion to drive the bottom line, the threat of toxic fandoms poisoning that enthusiasm has become seemingly intractable headache for almost every studio, and it's only getting worse. So here's their thesis. Did you catch it? It's subtle. Here's their thesis right here. The threat of toxic fandoms poisoning the enthusiasm is the headache for almost every studio. We're so worried that the toxic fandom. Okay, let's talk about YouTube for a moment. Let's have a conversation about the reality of YouTube that these writers just don't understand. Most of the time, people go and watch the creators that they agree with. Those creators make videos that resonate with their audience. And so there's a little bit of a mutuality between the two, where if you have a creator that you like and agree with what they say, you're more than often not going to keep watching that creator. Most people, very, very, very few people continue to watch people or continue to engage on YouTube when they dislike or do not like the videos or the perspectives of said creator. I will give you an example. On my own YouTube channel, I made a video recently talking about how Dave Filoni is the real problem. And a lot of you didn't like the video. More of you didn't like it than did like it. For a specific reason. You recognized how I fell into hyperbole and how I was so focused with my frustration on Dave Filoni that I kind of let Kathleen Kennedy off the hook. And you're right, I did. I probably shouldn't have. And there were a few people in that comments section who were like, great, quick unsubscribe. Thanks. Now I know not to watch any more videos. I mean, I didn't take it personally. Was I disappointed? Sure. But what happened there? I gave a view and a perspective that fan, that person did not agree with. And so they're like, great, I'm not going to subscribe to you anymore. Moving on. I don't think Star Wars creators on YouTube, I don't think Critical Drinker, Star Wars Theory, Nerdrotic, name it, go down the list, me even, I don't think any of us are telling you that are watching what to believe. I don't think that at all. I think instead, we know our audiences and we know what our audience would prefer to see. And much of the time, that's because we agree on the same things and we have similar perspectives. So over time, the longer that this YouTube channel goes on, probably more of you here will agree with my perspectives than not. And I think that's very clear. It's a chicken and the egg. They're saying that it's the creators. This is why that whole campaign to try to get the creators gone. The creators are the ones causing this toxic fandom hate. But in reality, what I would say is it's dissatisfied fans who find other dissatisfied fans, and some of them put up a camera, grab a microphone, and talk about it on the internet because they're not scared to hide behind articles and things like this. I really don't think studios are terrified of toxic fandoms. They shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. They should be worried about making good products. And if you only make the products to not piss anyone off, it's always going to suck. If every video I ever made here on YouTube, I just simply wanted to make something so that I didn't make anyone upset, that's going to be a bunch of crap content. You know what's much better is to make things that resonate with people, make things that are creative, that are exciting, that are interesting, and there's going to be people that don't like it. But when in the marketing to all these things, if I following, again, continuing with this analogy, if all I did was promote all my videos for a certain audience, I shouldn't be surprised when the opposite of the audience I was going for doesn't like what I made. Not rocket science, folks. It's not rocket science. It comes with the territory, but it's gotten incredibly loud in the last couple years. Sorry. We've been here for almost 40 minutes. If you're still here, hey, thanks. Hit that like button, would you? I'd appreciate it. Says a veteran marketing executive at a major studio. People are just out for blood regardless. I don't think that's true. They think the purity of the first version will never be replaced, or you've done something to upset the canon of a beloved franchise, and they're going to take you going down for doing so. Well, let's ask a question here. I am not upset that the quote unquote purity of Star Wars can never be replaced. Like, I'm not sitting here expecting that. But what I am expecting is a level of storytelling, a level of lore, a level of canon, a level of love for what has been to a minimum. Like that's a low bar. Respect what's come before. Plain and simple. Don't crap all over it and take a sequel trilogy where you completely change characters' motivations off screen and get us to try and buy in to you literally killing off those characters in favor of your poorly written characters and expect us just to swallow that and like it. The canon of our beloved franchises are important to us. That's why Star Wars cost $4 billion, because fans actually love this stuff. And so it's mind-numbingly frustrating when the creators of a beloved franchise care less about the canon than the fans. Sometimes toxic fandoms behave reactively. A House of the Dragon episode featuring 2 female characters kissing, and an episode of The Last of Us focusing on a gay couple were both review bombed, and that didn't change those shows, did it? People didn't like those episodes. House of the Dragon was still a good show, overwhelmingly. Why? Because it was good. They reacted negatively to a moment. And was it everyone in the fandom? No. Can they be upset about something? Sure. Can they be upset about you taking something in a very strange way that just feels out of place or feels like it has a specific purpose behind it that didn't really fit the narrative direction of what the show might have been, that's fair. You have to at least hear that criticism. Not everyone with that criticism was just review bombing. The vast majority of any fandom are casual fans. Okay, then if this is true, the number of people who live and die on their franchises are very, very few. And those who come after things that they espouse to love with venom are a really, really tiny subset of that already smaller subset of fandom. It's much easier to see it now. I don't know that it's really that much broader than where things it makes no sense, were in 1995. It's just the bullhorn wasn't there. Okay. Social media does change things. That's fair. But if this is the first time someone at least is admitting that, hey, maybe the people that are being quote unquote called hateful are much, 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 much tinier than we would say. And I actually agree with that. I agree because I think most of the people that are very critical of Star Wars particularly are not hate-filled. They're critical because it's something they love. And then a lot of times it's the fans, not the creators, who take it further, who say and do things on Twitter and in DMs that is uncalled for. But let's not kid ourselves. They're at least admitting it's a really, really tiny group. So why are they, again, back to the beginning, they're really that scared of this tiny, tiny group poisoning everything? No, I think you're missing the point. I don't think these tiny groups poison everything. I think when something pops up that is terrible, it catches fire because the larger fandom agrees with the criticism of this smaller group. That's how it works. They're not being like recruited. Yikes. Still, toxic fandoms have grown so pernicious that they become a fact of life for many and so powerful that really? Are they so powerful? Which is it? Are they the really, really tiny, extra small, teeny weeny, itsy bitsy minority, or are they this powerful toxic fandom? You can't have it both ways. Executives and publicists will privately bemoan the issue, fear of inadvertently triggering another backlash. Like, what does the backlash come from? Stop making garbage content. Stop forcing things into stories and into productions that don't belong there. Those who did talk with Variety agreed that the best defense is to avoid provoking fandoms in the first place by making good content. Yeah, this is just, it keeps going. It keeps going. So they're very vocal, the studio exec says. They will just tell us, if you do that, the fans are going to relate. Now they're talking about standard focus groups testing, which I think is a disaster. I think this is a disaster of an idea. If you cater to focus groups, you're missing the point. If you're just trying not to piss people off, you're missing the point. There's going to be pissed off people all the time. Criticism is not hate. We've said it so many times here on this video. Criticism is not hate. But what we can do, here it is. Here's the trick. All you studios, be more selective. Be more patient with your content. Make it great. The Joker 2 is a perfect example of this. It's a blatant money grab. And it's just a middle finger to the audience. What do you expect? Come up with good ideas. Not just the first pitch you get. And then when you run the marketing for it, how about you not market it for a specific fan group that you only like? Market it broad. That's why the Star Wars movies pull in billions of dollars. Because they are marketed to the casual fan. What Disney has been doing has been choosing the subset that they want to cater to and making content for them. And then they get surprised when the people they didn't make the content for go, this is junk. We don't like this. Yeah, no duh. This is why the whole kind of pushing diversity doesn't work, because you only push diversity in one direction. You don't have diversity of thought. You only have diversity of skin color, of race. You don't have diversity of actual thought. You're actually going the opposite direction and just pulling people in that already agree with you, because that's exactly what happens. Same on YouTube, like I said. So you have to broaden the net. You have to broaden the project and not make it about, hey, they made fun of our trailer and that's why this failed. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. It's like YouTubers complaining about the YouTube algorithm. The algorithm hates my videos. No, people just didn't like it. Suck it up, Buttercup, and come up with a better idea. Anyway, I'm not gonna rant through the rest of this. I think the whole focus group thing is just a terrible idea. I could make a whole video just on that. And if you want to see that, let me know down in the comments below. Share your thoughts, please. Where could I have been more clear? What do you think about this whole toxic fandom idea? How can we keep... how do I want to close this out? I don't know. If you made it through this whole video, you're a real one. I appreciate it. Hey, if you made it through this whole video, thanks. I appreciate it. Feel free to leave a like on your way out, and I'll catch you on the next one.